Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tech It. For decades, one of the biggest challenges in computing has been this right here. How do we get a machine to really get the nuance, the context, and all the creativity of human language? Well, the answer that's changing our world right now is a technology called large language models, or LLMs. And in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what they are and how they actually work. So, what exactly is a large language model? At its very core, it's an AI that's been trained on just an enormous amount of text. I mean, think of it like it's read a huge chunk of the internet, millions of books, just countless articles. But here's the key thing to remember. Its main job, its fundamental purpose, is to predict the next word in a sentence. It doesn't think or understand the way a person does. Instead, it's all about complex statistical analysis, figuring out which word is most likely to come next based on all the patterns it's learned from that mountain of data. All right, to make sense of all this, here's what we've got on tap. We'll kick things off with what LLMs are, then we'll dive into how they learn and get turned into useful tools. After that, we'll check out some real-world applications, I'll give you some tips on how to get the best results, and finally, we'll touch on their limitations and what's coming next. So let's start with the basics. The really big leap forward with LLMs is the shift away from simple keyword matching, like in an old school search engine, to understanding genuine context. We're talking about an AI that can grasp nuance, sarcasm, and complex ideas in a way that just wasn't possible before. Now, you probably heard the term generative AI thrown around a lot, right? Well, that's the big, broad category for any AI that creates new stuff, whether it's images, music, or code. LLMs are simply a specialized part of that family, the part that focuses completely on language. So how does an LLM go from basically a blank slate to being able to write an email or even a poem? Well, the learning process is pretty fascinating. It's a multi-stage journey that all starts with building this massive foundation of knowledge. We can really break down that initial learning into three big steps. First up, data collection. An almost unimaginably vast data set is pulled together from books, websites, scientific papers, code, you name it. Step two is pre-training. This is where the model sifts through all that data to learn the rules, the patterns, and the relationships in language. And finally, it uses all that knowledge for its core task, prediction. At every single turn, it's just trying to make its best guess on the most probable next word in a sentence. Let's zero in on that pre-training step for a second. The best way to think about it is like this. Imagine the AI is just reading a library that contains pretty much everything ever written. It isn't studying for a specific test or anything. It's just soaking it all in, getting a broad understanding of how language works, how different concepts are connected, and how ideas are put together. This is really how it builds its general knowledge about the world. But here's the thing, that raw pre-trained knowledge isn't enough to create a helpful AI assistant. A model that's only been pre-trained is kind of like a brilliant student who knows a ton of facts, but has no idea how to apply them to solve actual problems. So the next stage is all about refining that raw power into a practical and safe tool. And that brings us to the crucial difference between pre-training and fine-tuning. Pre-training, as we said, builds that general knowledge from huge unlabeled datasets. Fine-tuning is like sending that brilliant student to a specialty school. Here, the model gets trained on a much smaller, really high-quality dataset to become an expert in a specific field, like medical diagnosis or legal contract analysis. After all that, there's one more absolutely critical step: alignment and safety. This is where the developers essentially teach the model to be helpful, honest, and harmless. They train it to follow instructions properly, to refuse to generate dangerous or unethical content, and just generally to align its behavior with human values. This safety layer is what makes these powerful tools responsible and trustworthy. Okay, so we know how they're built, but where are we actually using them? Let's take a look at some of the real-world applications that are already shaking up industries. The versatility is just incredible. For text generation, they're drafting everything from marketing emails to full-on creative stories. With summarization, they can take a 100-page report and boil it down to a few key bullet points. They're breaking down barriers with super advanced language translation. For coders, they're becoming essential tools for writing and debugging code. They can even analyze complex datasets and spot trends. And, of course, they are the brains behind the AI assistants and chatbots so many of us use every day. Now, a key thing to understand is that an LLM is a tool, and the quality of what you get out of it depends a lot on the quality of what you put in. This has created a whole new skill called prompt engineering. So let's look at what makes a good prompt versus, well, a bad one. So here's a pretty typical prompt, but honestly, it's not very effective. It's just too vague. What kind of summary are you looking for? Who is it for? How long should it be? The model has to make a whole bunch of guesses, and the result is probably going to be pretty generic and not all that useful. Now, check this out. This is a highly effective prompt. See how it assigns a role? You are an expert. It gives clear context. The audience is a busy executive. And it gives really specific constraints. 3 bullet points and under 75 words. This level of detail is exactly what guides the model to produce a high-quality, super relevant response. So, to quickly recap the principles for a great prompt, be specific and detailed. Assign a role to set the right tone. Break down really complex tasks into smaller, manageable steps. If you can, provide examples of the output you want. And finally, always state your constraints clearly, like the length or the format. Okay, despite all their incredible capabilities, LLMs are not perfect. It's really important to have a balanced view and to understand their current limitations, as well as some of the cool solutions being developed to fix them. The most significant challenge is something called a hallucination. This happens when the model generates information that sounds totally plausible, and it's written with a ton of confidence, but it's factually wrong or just completely made up. Remember, the model is just predicting the next likely word, so it doesn't have a concept of truth. And that can be a huge problem, especially in fields like medicine or finance where accuracy is everything. So how do we fix this? Well, one of the most promising solutions out there is something called Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG for short. The idea is simple. Instead of only relying on its internal pre-trained knowledge, a RAG system first retrieves fresh information from a trusted external source, like a company's internal database. It then uses that verified information to generate its answer. This grounds the response in real, factual data and seriously cuts down the risk of hallucination. Wow, we have covered a lot of ground today, from the absolute basics of what an LLM is, all the way to the cutting-edge solutions for its biggest challenges. If you found this explainer helpful, please do me a favor and hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives like this, and definitely share your thoughts in the comments below. And I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on. As this technology becomes a bigger and bigger part of our lives, both at work and at home, what do you think is the single most important skill we need to develop to work with it effectively and responsibly? Let us know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.